Hello, 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 hello. How is everybody doing tonight? Crimezilla, glad you are here. We're actually working on something together here pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. Chris, Gideon, how are you? Glad you're here. Reach into my soul and pull it, it won't hurt. Glad you're here. We're getting ready to read something from her, a little tribute. Okay. I don't think I saw who you mentioned, but I definitely will. Hey Wes. It's oh, I was gonna ask you before we get started. Because like obviously like Dave Chappelle, it's I think it's spelled the same, or is it Chapel? Is it Chapel or Chappelle? I don't want to mess that up. Yeah, it really is such a sad case. She really doesn't have anyone. I'm pulling up my YouTube now. Lighting the way home for the vanished. Hi, welcome. I added your link to your YouTube to my links for my mods. So if the mods still have that, you can grab obviously the Justice for Peggy, Justice for Heaven, Justice for Shannon, and the page and the group. Lighting the way. I have her. But yeah, that was kind of what that was for. If you guys know how to use it, I can also send it in email too. But tonight I have a lot of content. I don't know if we're going to get through it all because the more on the surface, the Peggy Chappell case, Chapel. I think it's Chapel. I'm waiting for Wes. He might have stepped out. But it looks like there's not a lot there until you get into like newspapers. And I was able to find quite a bit and then quite a lot of other cases. Okay, so it's Chappell. Chappell. Okay. Peggy Chappell. Hey, Lake. Aw, thanks. I was playing around with my eyeshadow, but I feel like it's might be a bit much. I'm feeling a little Cruella de Vil. But yeah, so I found quite a lot and we need to get started on it. So I'm glad you're all here. And hey, Monica, glad you're here. I know this is for you and Wes. This is a case that's close to your heart, and I hope I do it justice. And let's get started. Okay, I'm going to show these images first, and then I'm going to read what she wrote. Let me just get it queued up here. I thought this was so cool, and I like, especially the hat. Like, just wait till you guys see this. It's really cool. And then what she wrote was just really sweet too. So I want to show it, and then we can like kind of I'll read you the post from Reach Into My Soul and Pull It, It Won't Hurt. She's awesome. And I'm going to share it really big so everybody can see it the best. So as you can see on the left of the screen is Hoosier the Bruiser's mug. And then next to that is a rock that she found. And for her, it was like I can see, especially the head and the hat area, that it just kind of looked like her mug. And so it was pretty cool. And a couple more, like you can really see that hat like on that one, and just kind of how it looks similar to the black and white of the Hoosier the Bruiser's logo. So now I'm going to read what she had to say. Was that comment in the way? No, it wasn't. Okay. All right. So this is from Reach Into My Soul and Pull It. It Won't Hurt. I have a story I want to tell. It is a true story. I've been keeping it to myself for a while. A few people I've told. I just don't want people to think I'm loony. So, a few months ago, one of my 4 favorite YouTube creators passed away. His name is Hoosier the Bruiser. He was from Indiana originally. I liked his logo, so I ordered a coffee cup for like $10. Anyways, he passed away suddenly in his sleep. He had just had a 3-hour long live in which he laughed hysterically the whole night, and the stories he told were so crazy funny. My mother and I listened to YouTube a lot at night. We laughed our whole butts off this night into real tears until we couldn't breathe. Over and over, his laugh was out of this world crazy. So fast forward to about 3 weeks ago, I'm in a bad place in my mind, and I started walking every day. While I walk, I pick up interesting rocks. Also, while I walk, I have YouTube on my phone and I listen to his last show because I like the 2 songs he had for his intro, Just Come Get Me and Bling Bling. The beat of the songs is the same pace that I walk. So I got to the park and stepped into the gravel area and I saw this rock. I picked it up because it was contrasting white and black. I put it into my bag. When I got home, I took the rocks out and cleaned them, and I saw this. And guess what? I cried my eyes out, and sometimes I see it again, and I still do. I can't explain it, but it is true. This really happened. Just one of the many things that has happened in the past month and a half or so that I can't really explain. I'm adding a current picture. Pick on the right now as I sit here so you can see it's not photoshopped or anything. Edited to add that Bruiser also had a sister who was brutally murdered in Indiana back in the 1980s. It is unsolved. Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Well, no, I did know that. I did know that. And like, this is the thing as creators, we get to be there for people, and you never know who you are influencing, and that you get to leave a legacy behind when you pass on and you're missed, and the impact that you and the way that you made people feel, and the way that you made people laugh, and a mother and a daughter come together. And when times are bad, they still turn to you for solace and to help them to be happy and to have some laughs. And I really think that that is pretty special. And, Bruiser was Bruiser, like, in that laugh, like it was like a crazy, crazy laugh. And I actually miss hearing it. And, we had our differences, but we also had a lot of in common. And after he died, I had gone and looked through all of the emails that we had back and forth to each other, and just the way that I was able to kind of help him at times and how he helped me. He actually helped me with getting away from working with Greeno, which is an ironic turn of events. But yeah, and so I thought that was really cool. I want to show those rocks one more time. So tribute to Hoosier the Bruiser. I'm going to read the chat a little bit. Thanks for reading and sharing. It felt like I needed to be shared. Well, you're so welcome, and I'm glad that you allowed me to share that for you. I know you he meant a lot to you, and you know, like, I think it is amazing that you were able to find something, you know, that is of symbolism, you know, that's how I see this rock. And I've seen some of the other really cool rocks that you collect, because I also have a whole, I'll have to show you all my rocks sometime, because I like to collect them too, and shine them up and keep them. And it's always hard to pick which ones I'm going to have out. So we share that, and I'm glad that you were able to find that. And I think it is super cool. Like, it's badass. So especially that hat. Like, I don't know, you guys can see that hat. And then you kind of got a bodice here, a bodice. Yeah, that's really cool. Right this minute, I'm drilling out a tiny skeleton. That's awesome. True Crime with Sunshine. Cool name. Hello. Welcome. Hey, Dana. How you doing? I sent them to our group chat. I'll do it again. I'll send them to just you. But yeah, I've put together quite the extensive list. But I think it's important in this that we support each other. And so I just wanted to make it easier for myself and for any mods that want to be able to share. But yeah, I got all my chaotic beauty and crime, cold cases, Crimezilla, Kaleidoscope, Beyond the Rainbow, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, Gray Hughes Investigates, It's a Crime and Shame, Social Media is Not an Investigation Tool. So these are all the Facebook groups that I follow. And more Facebook groups, and then YouTube channels. So yeah, I've got quite a lot going on here. And then I'm working on the podcasts. So yeah. Oh. Oh, they did. Wow. Well, there's some news coming soon regarding Karina's case. There you go. Hopefully that helps. All right. Y'all ready for this? Yeah, I sent them. Hopefully you got them now. Okay, so this is the case of Peggy Irene Chappell. Let me share my screen. I'll show the slides I made up first. Well, this is Peggy Irene Chappell, just a sweet little innocent 6-year-old. There's hardly any pictures of her. This is Peggy, and then Shannon, Paulk, and Heaven, LaShae Ross. These are just 3 of the many, many little girls murdered unsolved that I have found. It's quite disturbing, and you'll see some of the similarities here in a few minutes. So I just kind of map things out so you can see, like, they're all in Alabama. They're all about an hour to an hour and 20 to 30 minutes apart from each other. This is the area where Peggy was abducted, right outside of her house, like literally few feet away from her house, outside of a Matt's Market. And her body was found about 75 yards from her home in a basically a dilapidated abandoned house that was basically just debris. And then I found 2 other victims that it is unsolved, and they were raped and left for dead. And then 2 other victims, Evelyn, and I have it spelled here wrong, but it's actually Tamika. Evelyn and Tamika. They were a 9 and 7-year-old in 1985 in Birmingham, Alabama, in the Norwood area that were killed together as well, and their bodies were found the next day. One was found the night of the kidnappings, and the other little girl's body was found the next day in a kind of a wooded area. This is where Shannon Nicole Paulk, she vanished from her neighborhood in Candlestick mobile home park in Alabama. And she was found here at a hunting preserve off of County Road 66 in Alabama. And then we have Heaven LaShae Ross, same thing, vanished on her way to the bus, and was found 3 years and 3 months to the day later in a dilapidated old house. And this is just kind of showing how far apart they are from each other. And I'll just go ahead and read the short write-up that I wrote in case, people, because I think I'm going to start trying to do like the first little part of like a shorter version of not the unanal the unanalyzed Mel, and then go into the more in-depth look at the case. That way I'm able to still get the story out there to spread awareness and see what we can come up with in a short, condensed version. And then we can really go in and like study it. And then you'll see where I got all of this stuff. So Peggy Chappell, age 6, was born on January 24th, 1987. She resided in the Norwood Gardens Apartments, Birmingham, Alabama. She was beautiful with big blue eyes and the face of an angel. She was loved dearly by her classmates and teachers. Witnesses say that on Thanksgiving Day, November 25th, 1993, Peggy was seen with a man who kissed her on the cheek before he loaded her into his van. Or it could have been an SUV. Oh, sorry. I think what happens is all the talking, like I forget to like breathe properly, and then I like get lack of oxygen and I start yawning. I'm so sorry. The next day, November 26, 1993, Peggy's body was found inside an abandoned building atop a pile of trash. She had been bound with rope, wrapped in a beach towel, and placed in a green trash bag. Her clothing was folded neatly inside the bag. Peggy suffered massive blunt force trauma to the head. Her throat was cut. Her legs, arms, back, buttocks, and thighs were badly bruised. According to an interview with the Associated Press, FBI Special Agent Bill Fleming said Peggy was hit on the head with an iron pipe. The blow was forceful enough to kill her, but investigators believe she lived for up to an hour before someone slit her throat. And as if this case isn't heinous enough, it sadly gets worse. Peggy's mother, Katie Chappell, told investigators it didn't benefit her, end quote, it didn't benefit her to tell them the name of the man or the license plate number of the van, to whom she believes is her daughter's killer. She said this of the man in the van: he always brought her back before, end quote. In 1994, Katie was charged with hindering prosecution. She took a plea deal for this charge, but failed to meet the terms of the plea, which outlined her cooperating with law enforcement agency in charge of her daughter's murder, resulting in her being sentenced to 3 years in prison and 5 years probation. Judge James Garrett said, "You have no constitutional right to remain silent," end quote. I cannot imagine how frustrated they must have been with this woman. It's reported that she stood on top of the casket crying loudly and gained sympathy at the vigil right after her daughter's murder for her exaggerated tears. In hindsight, this weird behavior, coupled with her refusal to speak, still to this day, by the way, paints a picture that does not sit well with anyone. Why would a mother do this? They told her that she could face up to 10 years in jail, yet she chose to remain silent. She chose to serve the 3 years she was actually sentenced to, even though all she would have needed to do to serve 0 time was to tell them the name of the man who killed her daughter, along with seeing the person held accountable for what he did to her daughter. As a big factor of like, you would want that, I would think. And I can only think of like 5 reasons of why a mother would choose to refuse to help investigators to solve their child's murder. Number 1, she thought 10 years was less than what she would get if she told the truth because she was involved in some way. I don't think she physically murdered her daughter, but I do go back to that statement she made. He always brought her back before. One of the long-standing rumors that she was sex trafficking her daughter, Peggy. If true, I'm sure she would be given more than 10 years in an Alabama prison. I wonder if they offered her full immunity, though, if that's when she would tell them. Number 2, she was afraid that the person would kill her other child, herself, or the people that she loved. What if the killer is someone with power who is threatening to use that power to hurt her and her family? Number 3, the person who killed her daughter is someone she loves. Number 4, she killed the man herself and or had him killed. Number 5, she doesn't know who the man was. It has been almost 28 years now, and she still refuses her daughter the justice she deserves. What is her reasoning now? I hope she changes her mind. With the brutality of the crime against little Peggy, it seems likely that this person would commit other crimes. Like, there are some striking similarities to Peggy's murder and the murder of Shannon Paulk in Prattville, Alabama in 2001. 7 years after Peggy, on August 16, 2001, Shannon Nicole Paulk, age 11, was abducted and murdered in Prattville, Alabama. Her body was found on October 6, 2001, in a remote hunting preserve 10 miles north of her neighborhood of Candlestick Mobile Home Park, to where she was taken from. Here are some of the similarities. 1, young white female. 2, Alabama. 3, broad daylight kidnapping. 4, placed in a trash bag with her clothing in a pile inside the bag, same as Peggy. 5, hidden. 6, according to murder data, Shannon COD was beaten by blunt force instrument. There are also similarities between those two cases and the abduction murder of Heaven LaShae Ross, also in Alabama. Heaven was abducted while walking from her Willowbrook mobile home park to the bus stop on August 19th of 2003 in Northport, Alabama. Her body was found November 19th, 2006 in a rundown secluded house off Crescent Ridge Road in Holt. And it was hard to find if you didn't know where you were going, and was known as a spot where people used drugs and did other illegal activities. We think someone who frequented, this is quote, we think someone who frequented that area around the house probably saw something, heard something, or knows something. How many times do we hear that? And it's almost always true. Someone knows something. Said Tuscaloosa Violent Crimes Unit Assistant Commander Captain Kip Hart. We're just asking that they reflect and decide if they need to come forward and tell us what they know. Investigators called the house immediately, knew the remains belonged to Shay. So these are the articles that I found for. Oh, thank you, Crime. Welcome to VIP. And I'm going to change the setting here so that I don't get in the way of the articles that I'm showing. Yes, Crime. It is very sad. Monica, she was afraid to tell because she knew she would probably get more charges. You don't just send your baby off like that. Yeah. I tend to agree. Hey, Sarge. Hey, David. Glad you guys are here. Oh, Dana. I know. We got a flash storm. Oh, the flooding. Okay. Well, that's good. I know. It's so sad. 39 dead and they are still rescuing people. Wow. That is so sad. So scary. Oh, okay. That's all right. Let me see if I can fix that. I added a few of you to it. Okay, now for deep dive. I lost my place. Just 1 second. Okay, so the first one I found was on November 29th, and the first one is just a hey, Professor Pug, how are you? Glad you're here. Glad you're here. Ah, thanks. I got my Colorado shirt because I'm super excited. I get to go there pretty soon in like 10 days. Woohoo. All right. So we are going to read November 29th, 1993. An atmosphere of mistrust has existed in Birmingham's Norwood community since the Thanksgiving Day slaying of 6-year-old Peggy Chappell. Residents of the Norwood Garden Apartments, where Peggy lived with her parents and 10-year-old brother, believe someone in the community knows something about her death. Worse, they fear it could be a neighbor. Somebody around here saw something, said Dorothy Robinson, resident manager of the apartment complex where Peggy lived. It just tears me up that whoever that person is won't come forward. A first grader at a nearby Norwood Elementary School, Peggy was found less than a block from her home Friday morning on the 1700 block of 33rd Street North, stuffed in a garbage bag behind a dilapidated house. She had been bound with duct tape. Yesterday, authorities had still not revealed the cause of death. The night that Peggy disappeared, Mrs. Robinson said the girl's mother, Katie Chappell, was at home preparing Thanksgiving dinner. When Peggy had not returned by dark, neighbors, friends, and Birmingham police launched a massive search. We combed through here with flashlights and all All I could think about was the other girls, and I thought, oh God, not Peggy, too, said Mrs. Robinson, referring to the still unsolved 1985 beating deaths of two Norwood girls, aged 7 and 9. The girls also lived in Norwood Garden Apartments. It's too much to bear. Everybody loved Peggy. It didn't matter to us that she was white. Norwood is a mostly black neighborhood about 2 miles northeast of downtown Birmingham. Forget it. I hate that. This is that same article, just continued. But it didn't matter if the race of the alleged assailant was concocted to protect a black man, said resident Joe Archie Robinson, who is not related to Mrs. Robinson. Okay, wait. But it does matter if the race of the alleged assailant was concocted to protect a black man, said resident Joe Archie Robinson, who is not related to Mrs. Robinson. Some residents, he said, are having a hard time coping with witnesses' descriptions that a white man driving a brown van picked up Peggy up from in front of Matt's Market, a corner store just a few feet from the girl's house. The market is supposedly the last place Peggy was seen Thursday afternoon. It just makes you wonder if somebody is lying, said Robinson, who has lived in the apartment complex for only a few months. Several Norwood residents said yesterday that they thought police already had a suspect in the case, but Police Chief Johnny Johnson said that is not true. Johnny said that despite a weekend-long investigation and stepped-up police patrols in the Norwood neighborhood, no suspect has been located. In fact, Johnson said police need the public's help in finding a suspect. We need them to provide us with all of the information they can. But police might have better response if they offered reward money in exchange for the information, said Mrs. Robinson, who plans to attend tomorrow's Birmingham City Council meeting with neighbors. The only reward money available now is the $1,000 reward offered for a tip to Crime Stoppers that leads to an arrest and conviction. We're going to ask that some money be put up for Peggy. That's the least we could do. No 6-year-old on God's earth deserves what she got, and she certainly doesn't deserve to have somebody protecting her killer. Norwood has suffered through this before. I think we are targeted for some reason, said Gwendolyn Sykes, president of the Norwood Neighborhood Association. It seems like the little girls here are being continuously victimized. But the commander of the North Precinct, Captain Charles Truck, said the crime problems of Norwood are no different than those in a dozen other neighborhoods. I don't know. It really just depends on the notoriety the media gives to one case over another. Right now, some in the neighborhood are coping with the abduction and slaying of the 6-year-old Peggy Chappell between Thanksgiving Day and the morning after. In 1992, it was a man with a gun who took 2 girls to a wooded area, pistol whipped the 12-year-old, and raped the 13-year-old. Jimmy Lee Tinsdale was later convicted on 1 charge of rape and 2 charges of kidnapping in the case. And in 1985, it was the gruesome beating deaths of Tomika Hall, 7, and Evelyn Gould, 9. Police later arrested and charged Prince Albert Welch in the killings, but he was acquitted. The slayings have not been solved. Like Peggy, Tomika and Evelyn lived in the Norwood Garden Apartments complex. In both cases, the girls were last seen in the early afternoon, and all three were found slain just short distances from their home. The first thing I thought when I heard about Peggy was that they never solved the older case, Mrs. Sykes said. There are so many similarities that you have to wonder. That's what everybody around here is saying now, that it must be the same guy. Birmingham police, however, have given no indication that there could be a link between Peggy's death and the 1985 slayings. Whether there is or not, Mrs. Sykes said, the talk around the neighborhood shows just how afraid people are right now. That makes it seem worse, doesn't it? To think the same guy could be at it again. My grandchildren have had nightmares the last couple of days. And she did in 1985. Mrs. Sykes said she will go before the city council to ask for additional reward money. And they also built a monument, or they were planning to build a monument for the three slain girls to go up on Norwood Boulevard. There's also talk of needing a safe house, a McGruff house. Not sure if you guys are familiar, but yeah, those, I really do think back then, I know they did so much good for kids to be able, from somewhere for kids to be able to go. And then a radio station raised $3,000 for a reward fund for Peggy. And then on December 15th, the family received $500 for Eugene Chappell's, he was 10, Christmas. And then got one marked here, read. This is when we're getting into the mother of this little girl. So this is her mother. It was a year ago today that the story refused to have a happy ending. Little Peggy Chappell turned up in a garage in a garbage bag. The bright-eyed 6-year-old who was reported missing the day before and became the subject of a widely publicized search had been murdered and dumped in debris near her Norwood home. Next week, days after the anniversary of the killing that shocked Birmingham, Peggy Chappell's mother must appear in court to answer charges that she has thwarted still unsuccessful police efforts to find her daughter's killer. Katie Chappell, 33, is to be arraigned in Jefferson County Circuit Court Friday on charges of hindering police prosecution in felony punishable by 1 to 10 years in prison. That means prosecutors will present the evidence they have collected against her, and she will enter a plea of guilty or not guilty. That's so annoying. We feel like she knows something she's not telling us, Birmingham Police Homicide Lieutenant George Cooley said, adding that he did not want to comment further about the case against Mrs. Chappell until after her trial. Police have not definitively settled on a suspect in Peggy's killing, he said. We don't think we know who did it, he said. At this point, we don't eliminate anybody. He said police are actively investigating the case. Mrs. Chappell's lawyer, Chris Christ, said he did not want to talk about the charges against his client until after the arraignment, when he will learn exactly what the prosecution plans to argue. But Christ said Mrs. Chappell is innocent of any crime and was not involved in the death of her daughter, a first grader in Norwood Elementary School who died on Thanksgiving Day in 1993 after her throat was slashed. He said he does not know if police are pursuing other avenues in the investigation. investigating the case. That's what I'm trying to find out. After being charged with hindering prosecution in May, Mrs. Chappell waived her right to a preliminary hearing, and the case was sent to the grand jury. She was indicted by that grand jury on September 7th. Jefferson County Circuit Court records show. No other arrests have been made in the case, which set off shockwaves in the Norwood community and prompted donations of at least $22,000 in rewards for information leading to the killer. Ms. Chappell's husband, Gene, has said his wife took 4 lie detector tests and failed 3 of them because her nerves are bad. Witnesses in the Norwood community told police they last saw Peggy as she stepped into a light-colored van or truck with a man they could describe only as white. Residents said they had seen the vehicle in the area before and surmised that Peggy knew the driver because she got into it willingly. How many times do we see this? So sad. These kids getting into these cars willingly. Neighbors and friends of Katie Chappell, a mother of a 6-year-old found slain in November in Norwood, said that there are mixed feelings in the community where Miss Chappell's and her family have continued to live. Birmingham police arrested Mrs. Chappell Friday on charges of hindering an investigation into the death. She was released the following day on a $15,000 bond. Over and over yesterday, residents of Norwood Garden Apartments said it bothered them to think Mrs. Chappell might know who killed her daughter. Others said her silence was harder to accept. And some said the neighbors are not being fair. Ms. Chappell has not been convicted of anything. Dorothy Robinson, resident manager of the complex and friend of the Chappell family, said she is having a hard time believing that Ms. Chappell knows more than she has told her friends. I just hate to think about it, said Miss Robin, not Katie, not Peggy's mother. If she is holding something back, she's a great actress because I don't see it. The charge of hindering, yeah, that's the same. Thank you, crime. Police release woman charged with hindering and probe of daughter slain. Police released a Birmingham woman charged with hindering an investigation into the slaying of her 6-year-old daughter. Katie Chappell, 32, declined to comment after being released on a $15,000 bond late Saturday. Quote, "You leave me alone," Mrs. Chappell screamed at a reporter for the Birmingham News. "I'm not talking to you. I've been through enough." Investigators said Ms. Chappell lied to them and failed to reveal all she knows about the case. The body of her daughter, Peggy, was found stuffed in a plastic garbage bag at an abandoned house on November 26th. Her throat had been cut. And then the rest is just the police. And what we've already read. May 29th of 1996. This took quite a while. A woman who swears she told all she knows about the death of her 8-year-old daughter in 1993 will go on trial next week on charges she knows more than she is telling. Mike Anderson, the assistant Jefferson County District Attorney, handled the case, won't say what it is he believes Katie Chappell knows, but he is confident enough in the case to try Chappell on the charges of hindering prosecutors. Peggy Chappell's body was found bound with tape and stuffed in a garbage bag in the rubble of a house about a block from her family home on November 26, 1993. She had been beaten in the head and her throat was slashed. No one has been charged. Chappell has failed 3 of 4 lie detector tests given to her since the body was discovered. Her lawyer, Chris Christ, has an explanation. She got tripped up over secondhand information about a vehicle neighbors reported seeing the girl get into before she disappeared. It was a white or beige van or Ford Bronco, Mr. Christ said. She says she disclosed everything she knows. It's their word against hers, Mr. Christ said. But he did say there are some strange things going on. I can't find any of her family members anywhere. If the family members know something that could help her, why won't they say? Interesting. $19.99. It's still going on. Nearly 6 years after her young daughter was kidnapped and killed, Peggy Chappell walked into a Jefferson County courtroom Tuesday and pleaded guilty to hindering prosecution. It is a distant memory now, the Thanksgiving Day 1993 disappearance of 6-year-old Peggy Chappell in her Norwood neighborhood. Her small body was found in a garbage bag the next day, her throat slashed, her limbs bound with duct tape. She was found in an abandoned house. And remember that her clothes were found folded neatly in a pile in the same bag as she was. Peggy's mother has maintained her innocence, and she still does, said her attorney, Chris McCrary. She simply just decided that this plea would be in her best interest when she made it on Tuesday afternoon. She does not want to go to prison. She does not want to go to prison. It's that simple. Let's see. The judge told her that he does not give her probation. She will be free to withdraw her guilty plea. If he does not sentence her to probation, we will withdraw the plea. Chappell was charged with hindering about prosecution in the first degree about a year after Peggy's death. A Class C felony carries a penalty range of 1 to 10 years. By charging Chappell, police and prosecutors hope to get her to divulge information about her little girl's death they felt she had been hiding from them. I'm truly confident that she knows something that she's not telling. Assistant District Attorney Mike Anderson said, whether she feels like this is now incentive enough to talk, I don't know. It took the case nearly 5 years to come to trial because there were several continuances. If he had presented his case to a jury Tuesday, Anderson said he would have called 2 witnesses who would have contradicted the story Chappell told police of her whereabouts when Peggy disappeared. Come on. Oh, we just read that. One witness, Anderson said, would testify that Chappell spoke to a man who was driving a Chevrolet Blazer just after he put Peggy into the vehicle. The other witness would testify that Chappell was just steps away from the Blazer when the vehicle drove off with Peggy in it. But McCrary said the prosecution witnesses could not be believed. First of all, we have a relative and a best friend of Katie Chappell who would testify that they saw another large woman in their neighborhood on those same days, and they thought it was her, but they found out that it wasn't. Anyone else understand what I just read? Because I've read it like 3 times and I have no idea. And he said one of the prosecution witnesses keeps adding details to his story, even as late as Tuesday morning. Katie is concerned about the plea itself, and I was surprised when she decided to do it this morning. I would have liked to have tried the case. I told her I thought we had a 70% chance of winning. Almost from the beginning, officials said they have had problems with Chappell. Her stories were inconsistent. She talked of visions and she failed more than one lie detector test, they said. Up until today, she hasn't accepted any responsibility for covering something up. Now she does. So October 24th, 1999, the judge orders Katie to talk as a part of her plea deal. No constitutional right not to talk now. And then if she does, she will get 5 years probation. That was the part of her plea. And then we go to November 29th of 2002. Investigators have returned with new energy to probe the death of Peggy Chappell, a 6-year-old Norwood girl whose murdered 9 years ago today shocked the city and stymied investigators. Detectives will turn to science and psychology to find the killer, going so far as to use hypnosis to draw information from witnesses who are now teenagers. Authorities say they believe they have narrowed the suspects down to a short list. Okay. New comparisons of fingerprints, DNA analysis, and new information about old phone records, interesting, could help them pinpoint the killer. We feel like we're close, said FBI Special Agent Bill Fleming. It's not that these people that are beating us are so smart, it's just the circumstances of the case. Fleming, who has won national recognition as one of the lead investigators to help win convictions in the 1963 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, said Peggy's murder haunts him. What would Peggy Chappell be doing now at the age of 15? She could have been a cheerleader or in band instead of in a casket. Wow. The second in the church bombing case, which many predicted would never be solved, keeps him hopeful. Those 4 girls deserve justice, and this little girl deserves justice. Peggy was last seen. We've already read that a lot. It does say it a little different, though. On a heap of trash in the rubble of a ruined house within the block of her family's Norwood Gardens apartment home. A 12-year-old boy made the gruesome discovery. Oh my gosh, that poor kid. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl was wrapped in a beach towel, her clothes folded neatly beside her in the garbage bag. Her skull was smashed and her hands bound. Her throat was cut and her body bruised. So awful. Fleming said Peggy was hit on the head with an iron pipe. The blow was forceful enough to kill her, but investigators believed she lived for up to an hour before someone slit her throat. There is the possibility that the first blow was not intended to cause death. and that panic set in after the fact. The medical examiner found no evidence that Peggy was sexually assaulted, but police found a pornographic magazine next to the child's body in the garbage bag. Authorities charged Peggy's mother, Katie Chappell, in 1994 with hindering prosecution because she won't help police find her daughter's killer. Investigators insist Katie Chappell, now 41, knows who coaxed Peggy into the van and why he took her. Katie Chappell passed one polygraph test, but stumbled on the next three after investigators found more information and made the questions more specific. She pleaded guilty in 1999, and Circuit Judge James Garrett sentenced her to 10 years in prison. He reduced the term to 5 years of probation on the condition that she cooperate fully with police. The judge revoked her probation when she refused to help and sent her to prison for 3 years, where she remains. Fleming said she is expected to be released next year. He said he will again ask a judge to help him compel her to talk. Just the thought of a mother not cooperating fully in her daughter's death is hard to imagine, Fleming said. There's no question that she knows who did this. New analysis. Fleming said advanced forensic testing could boost their chances at an arrest. Investigators are resubmitting evidence for testing, primarily DNA analysis. They're also preparing to make a new comparison with a fingerprint found in the garbage bag that contained Peggy's body. At least 2 witnesses, now in their teens, have agreed to hypnosis. Authorities said they believe more will volunteer. I swear I'm not tired. I don't know what's going on. Investigators are consulting with FBI profilers in Quantico, Virginia. Profilers there have narrowed the suspects to a short list and say the killer is someone. Let me guess what it says. Close to the family. They found it significant that Peggy's clothes were neatly folded inside the garbage bag and that her body was dumped close to her home. They feel that if a body is found close to the house, the killers want the body found quickly for a decent burial. Authorities are also disclosing for the first time publicly that a reward of thousands of dollars, they won't give the specific amount, is available. Fleming urged witnesses to come forth and help. There's no reason to be fearful of coming forward, he said. A lot of people just don't want to get involved, but this is not a case for complacency. There is no information too minor. Fleming will retire in January, but has received permission to continue the Peggy Chappell investigation beyond retirement. This will be worked, he said, until the people face justice. And the last one. But I'm gonna, I have to go to the bathroom. So while I'm gone, I'll let you guys look at that rock one more and see if you can, what you see. I get on here and I drink too much water. Apparently try to keep from yawning. I don't understand that. It happens when I read. Sorry, I'm putting on a jacket because I'm got really cold. Birmingham police using Facebook to solve cold cases, including 6-year-old girl's brutal murder. 6-year-old Peggy Chappell was last seen on Thanksgiving Day, 1993, getting into a van or SUV with a man whose witnesses said kissed her on the cheek. Her little body was found the next day, stuffed in a garbage bag and dumped on a heap of trash in a rubble of a ruined house within a block of her family's Norwood Gardens apartment home. A 12-year-old boy made the gruesome discovery. The blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl was wrapped in a beach towel, her clothes folded neatly beside her in a garbage bag. Her skull was smashed and her hands bound, her throat was cut, and her body bruised. Investigators have said Peggy was hit on the head with an iron pipe. The blow was forceful enough to kill her, but investigators believe she lived for up to an hour before someone slit her throat. Peggy's murder is one of 300 plus that remains unsolved in Birmingham dating back to 1951. The Birmingham Police Department in 2005 launched the cold case unit, and it has been made several high-profile arrests since its inception. Quote, I realized early that we simply couldn't afford to let the criminals forget that the trauma of homicide lasts a lifetime. Oh, wow, that's such a good quote. Couldn't afford to let the criminals forget that the trauma of homicide lasts a lifetime and someone has to pay, said now retired Deputy Chief Herman Hinton, who helped get the unit started in an earlier interview. The 2 veteran homicide detectives currently assigned to the unit, Jonathan Ross and Talena Brown, are now using new tools to try to crack old cases. 2 weeks ago, the detectives launched the cold case unit page on Facebook, and already tips are coming in. We're trying to reach out to the younger generation, aged 16 to 30. One tip came in this morning. While the first 48 to 72 hours are the most critical in getting witness information about a crime, investigators believe lapsed time often works in their favor since relationships and circumstances change and the people mature. Ross and Brown think Facebook will get their message and their need for witnesses and information out to the broader range of people. This will be a good tool for us, Ross said. Okay. I wanted to see if it still exists. Nope. That's a bummer. And then I wanted to go back up to Shannon Nicole Paulk because we are going to be covering it, but we did talk a little bit about it tonight. So I wanted to read one article for each of those 2 cases to help bring more attention to them. 19 years have passed and there's still no apparent closure for the family of Shannon Paulk. For those who lived in the river region long enough, the girl's name is familiar. The 11-year-old was kidnapped and later found dead in 2001. Her killer has never been brought to justice. Despite nearly 2 decades without answers, her family hasn't given up hope. They and friends have planned a weekend vigil for their loved one. The hellish nightmare continues for the girl's mom, Marie Shroud, who called it the worst nightmare you could ever live. Her faith in God has kept her going. Paulk went missing from her Prattville neighborhood in Candlestick Mobile Home Park on August 16th of 2001. With a trusting heart and a gentle smile, it is believed the little girl trusted a stranger and left the area. See how easily that happens. Tammy Evans is spearheading Sunday night's candlelight vigil, which will be held at 6 p.m. at the amphitheater near Stanley Jensen Stadium. Maybe this will bring somebody out and tell us something, explained Evans, who was Paulk's aunt. Come on, it's been 19 years. Surely somebody knows something. Evans said the vigil will include music, speakers, and memories of the youngster. Among those set to be in attendance is the former Prattville mayor, Jim Baird. Quote, people held their children closer. One of those things that just doesn't happen in Prattville, Baird explained. Shroud moved away not long after her daughter's body was found, but she still wonders why it happened all these years. After all these years, he may get away with this here on Earth, said Shroud. The tree planted 19 years ago in Pratt Park is now fully grown with a marker at its base, reminding all who pass by the life snatched away in the most cruel manner. Shannon Paulk would have been 30 years old today. Her mother can only wonder what might have been. No arrest and no closure, but they hang on to the hope that justice is not far away. To this day, she is not forgotten, Shroud said. And police haven't forgotten either. The Prattville Police Department said the investigation very much remains active, with an investigator working full-time on the case. Oh, is Monica or Wes, can one of you find that article that talks about Shannon, Heaven, LaShae Ross, and Teresa Dean? I totally forgot to grab that. If you can, if you have it handy, send it to me in Messenger. People recognize Beth Thompson. It will take them a minute, but eventually it clicks. They'll say, "You're so familiar to me." Then they figure it out. "I know you. You're Shay's mom." 15 years ago, Thompson's face was on the news almost as much as her daughter's. The disappearance of Heaven LaShae Ross, 11, from her home in Northport is undoubtedly the most publicized criminal case in the area's history and one of the few that remains unsolved. It's still like day one, but 15 years later. Thompson said Friday during an interview at her son's home in Brookwood, and it's a hard pill to swallow. Shay would have turned 26 this year, was in her first few days as sixth grade students at the Collins Riverside Middle School the morning of August 19th, 2003. It was a stormy Tuesday morning when she set off for the bus stop down the street from the family's home in Willbrook Trailer Park. She was just a minute or two behind her older sister, Alex, and ahead of her stepfather, Kevin, who said he heard a thunderclap and decided to drive the girls to school. Kevin said he got to the bus stop and found Alex, but Shay was nowhere to be found. At least 3 neighbors reported seeing Shay that morning, a young man walking to the bus stop, and a neighbor working at a computer near a window told police what they saw her. A woman who lived a few trailers down saw her and gave police an accurate description of her clothing. The pink brat shirt and leggings that would be found amongst her remains under an abandoned house 3 years later. Frustrating lack of evidence. There's ideas that we have as to who could have done this. Investigator Terry Keller. But as far as proof or evidence, we have nothing. Carroll was a juvenile investigator at the time who was assigned the lead case. His days started at 5 or 6 a.m. and ended after midnight or later. All of the thousands of tips calls in went through a team of 4 that he led. There was a lot of pressure to solve this case. Pressure he said he still feels as he plans to retire on his 60th birthday next year. This will be one that will always be with me, of course. I will always feel like I've let the family down and her down. People can say what they want as far as you did everything you could, but you always feel that there's more you could do. Thompson said he experienced a very little bit of relief when Shay's remains were found by a man looking for cans at the abandoned house in Holt, but he still craves closure. There's no closure at all. What I need is an arrest and a trial, she said. That would be my closure because then all of my questions would be answered. She's more interested in the why than the how. Shay was a sweet girl, she said, and a homebody who adored her family, and she was known as a peacekeeper in the family. We have asked ourselves why 1,000 times. She was the sweetest kid there was. She was spoiled. She was the baby. She said 15 years later, we're still asking ourselves why. Only she and Alex, her older daughter, very occasionally discuss what they think happened to Shay after she disappeared, and that's not a question welcomed from outsiders. We don't play the guessing game, Alex Ross said. I get real mad and upset if anyone approaches me about that, Thompson said. The mystery deepens. Police have never revealed how they believe Shay was killed. She was found 3 years and 3 months from the day she disappeared. The rundown, secluded house off Crescent Ridge Road in Holt was hard to find if you didn't know where you were going. And was known as a spot where people used drugs and did other illegal activities. We think somebody who frequented the area, also the house, probably saw something, heard something, or knows something. We're just asking that they reflect and decide if they need to come forward and tell us what they know. Investigators called to the house immediately, knew that the remains belonged to Shay. Tuscaloosa County Sheriff Office Chief Lloyd Baker, who headed the homicide unit at the time, had hung an identical pink brat shirt in their office, so investigators conducting searching fields in abandoned houses would recognize it. He saw the pink shirt and knew. Thompson had some problems with the way the investigation was conducted, primarily saying she doesn't think police took the disappearance seriously at first. An Amber Alert wasn't issued because there was no evidence to indicate Shay was in danger. Wow. Things are done differently now, said Thompson, who said she didn't want to speak harshly of the officers who worked the case. I don't think they reacted fast enough. They thought my baby was a runaway. I do have some animosity about things, some things. This was the first case they'd ever had like this. It is what it is. No, that's so sad. Police responded to the school in the mobile home park, looking in the neighborhood trailers and asking her school friends whether Shay had access to a phone or a computer. We thought she would show up after school, Carol said. When she didn't, it really changed the whole dynamic of everything. We really knew we had a problem. Panic escalates around the case. Around 4 p.m. that day, there was only a few officers and newspaper reporters at the trailer park trying to comfort Thompson as her panic escalated. But just a few hours later, FBI agents and national media outlets started calling and flying in from out of town. By that evening, we were hearing from everyone: the FBI, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and Dateline NBC. Carol said, I've never, not in all my working in homicide, even experienced anything that exploded that quickly. The next morning, a command center that would operate for the next 10 weeks was set up for the masses of local, state, and federal law enforcement officers assigned to the case. The trailer park became ground zero for family, volunteer searches, and media who sat under tents with fans and donated water and snacks. Tips came in from all over the country, some that were outlandish. One man called saying he could find Shay by using a device to track her aura. A pair of brothers called and said they could upload a photo of Shay to a satellite that would scan the earth and locate her with facial recognition technology. That seems to be something that will be in the future. The tips and leads had dried up, but Hart said investigators still review the case. When a lead will come in, we'll run it as far as we can, he said. They'll go through the file, look for notes and comments to see if any old information can corroborate the new information. I think the community, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of person would do this to a child? And to think at the fact that they eluded Identification and capture. We got to step it up. It's time to bring closure to the family and the community. Shay loved butterflies and wrote in her diary about the boy down the street and how much she loved her sister. Only a few pages of the diary are filled, but she did go through the book and number each blank page she expected to fill with stories of the life she didn't get to live. I think about her all the time, every day. I wonder what she would be like, what she would look like, what her personality would be like. Thompson has a grandson who will turn 3 in October. She wonders if she'd have even more grandchildren if Shay had lived. She had dreams about her, and when she sees a butterfly, she thinks, "Hey, baby, I see you." Life hasn't been easy for Thompson during the last 15 years. She moved to Foley for 8 years and returned to Tuscaloosa in 2013. She and her husband, Kevin, were divorced shortly before she was diagnosed with cancer the first time. She survived a second bout with cancer, then a series of deaths in the family, including an infant grandson, a stepfather, and a brother. Wow. I thought I would die, Thompson said. I tried a couple of times and didn't succeed and had a nervous breakdown. My life will never be the same. The pain is still really raw. Thompson waits tables at a T-Town cafe and lives with her daughter, Alex, just steps away from her son, Blake, his wife, and their son. She makes T-shirts to honor her daughter every year. Wow. Which she wore for a crew of news reporters who visited Friday. She clipped their microphones to her shirt expertly and a trick learned while giving years of interviews pleading for help to find her daughter's killer. Somebody is sitting on this, and why they will not release it, I do not know. They're either going to take it to their grave with them or they're going to give it up. She didn't just walk down the street and disappear into thin air. Hart said new investigators who come into his unit are all familiar with the case and said it's one they'll always work to bring to a conclusion. They had hoped the discovery of her remains would lead to a quick arrest, but there has never been enough information to lead to a solid suspect. We need the right person to come forward and tell us what they know. A lot of us have our theories about who it is. If that person is listening to or reading this, they need to just do the right thing. She was just a little kid on her way to school. Let's see if there's any comments. All these precious babies, how can there be no justice? Hope and pray. All y'all angels gone too soon. No, folks, we're still here. We'll always be fighting for each one of y'all. Yes. So far tonight, we have talked about Peggy Chappell, Evelyn Gold, Tamika Hall, Shannon Paulk, Heaven LaShae Ross, the 2 unnamed victims. Then we have other ones that I haven't talked about yet, are Rosie Davenport, Melissa Thompson, Teresa Dean, Haley Cummings, oh my gosh, I'm drawing a blank on the other little girl. Monica, help me out. Teresa Dean, Shannon, Evan, I can see her. Yeah. Yes, I totally agree. Hope all who are keeping secrets know they are just as guilty and may not pay in this life, but will pay in the next. Yes. I named Evelyn and Tomika. There is another one. It's in Alabama, or it might have been in Georgia. Teresa Dean. No, I already named Peggy. It's one that I didn't talk about tonight at all. But there's a lot of similarities between a lot of these cases. I know. And that's the thing is, Heaven's mother has fought so hard. She's never given up. She doesn't turn down interviews, and she puts herself out there over and over again. And when parents do that, think of the pain that every time they talk about it, what that does to them. But they do it because they love their children unconditionally, even after they're gone. And they know that the only ones that are truly fighting for their children will be them, you know? And then to have a mother like Katie who says things like, well, he's always brought her back before. Um, I think that's it's just so bizarre. And it doesn't, and the thing is like the media, social media, blah, blah. They all treat these mothers, it doesn't matter what they do. They can not talk, they can talk. They're all still criticized. I know that the Heavens family has taken a lot of criticism, and it's absolutely ridiculous. And that a mother that goes that long, since 2003, doesn't she just wants the killer caught. She wants justice for her daughter. She wants to know why. I know there are members of Shannon Paulk's family, her aunts and uncles. They want to know why. Why did this happen to my niece, my cousin, my loved one? Why? And they try their hardest, and we have tried our hardest to help. And, it's one of those things that the media want to talk to the mom and dad, and I don't like that. I hate that for the parents of not being able to um have a break, and but there's nothing I could do about it. And it's like um everyone has their right to grieve the way that they see fit and to not be criticized. I will say this though, the strength that it takes for the ones that keep fighting and fighting and fighting in the midst of all of the hate. Look what the Patties have got to go through. I know a lot of you are local here, and that case really hits home for a lot of us. Look what they've had to go through. Look, and then the contrast is to look at Galen Rose, and she's decided to be silent. And I would surmise it's from fear. It's kind of the same with Katie. Whether that's fear of her own prosecution, fear of her own death, her child's death. She's not speaking forward because of fear or love. Those are the only two things that I can think of, really. And like who are we to judge, and who are we to criticize how someone grieves and how they choose to do it? Like I said, I do think that the parents that get out there and fight, and they keep their child's case in the forefront of the media, and and more importantly, they do not let law enforcement forget their child. Their child is not going to fall into a rest in peace, and then nothing else is ever said, and that was the sad thing about the Tamika Hall and Evelyn Gold. There isn't anything to be found. There is some sparse newspaper articles, and that's it. There was 2 girls brutally murdered in the same neighborhood. And then what is that? 85 to 93, and then in 93, Peggy Chappell happened, but in 92 was the other 2 victims, and I mean, they were left for dead. It's just so crazy. So you have 2 double homicides, and the the murder of Peggy Chappell, all in the same neighborhood. What? It absolutely does. It absolutely does, and it is based on our personalities. We all process things in a different way based on how we interact with the world and ourselves. And to be quiet is perfectly fine. Like, I just wish people would put themselves in their shoes a little bit more often before they speak. On Shannon's case and vice versa, and have both of them get her sent this podcast. Well, thank you. You know, I usually just get pacifying answers, unfortunately, when I call. And anymore, like, it's just no answers, no callbacks at all, or emails or anything. Um, but I need to try again. Hey, Truth and Justice, how are you? What is that? Oh, I need a heart. Right? Oh, thank you, Crimezilla. She was able to work it. He said, no info is too small. Wonder if that would include behavior info from the towns away, not known to be known to family. Yeah, I think so. I mean, um, I think the main thing between the cases is like what I already stated, like especially with the clothes in a pile and the clothes folded, that is significant. And it was significant to the FBI profilers, and they took that to mean that that I think they were meaning like care took that it took attention. And but then you have the contrast of a little child. Like, I know this is hard, but we have to think about and really visualize what all happened to this little 6-year-old girl. I, hit with an iron pipe, bound, killed, bruises all over her body. Her clothes were removed. Think about how scared this little girl was. Think about how brutal. It was a merciless murder. It was just absolutely barbaric. And then, I just, and then, but then slices her throat. Can you imagine a child laying there suffering for up to an hour? And do you want to know how they know that? Because your heart is pumping. When you die and your throat is cut, if your heart is pumping, that blood is going to what? We all know what it's going to do. If your heart is no longer pumping, then it's not going to do that. I'm trying not to be too graphic. That's how they know that that little girl laid there, her head smashed in, and suffered for up to an hour before her throat was slit. She was wrapped up in a beach towel, thrown in garbage bags, but yet her clothes were neatly folded. And then the person put her in a pile of trash. A little girl. Like, who can you even imagine doing that to a child? Shannon, it was the same thing. She was taken off the streets of her own neighborhood for who knows how long. They do think that she died within a short amount of time of her disappearance because of the state of her remains when she was found 6 weeks later. But she was also put in a trash bag. Her clothes were in that trash bag. There was evidence she was bound. The bag was tied with rope and it was just thrown out into a hunting preserve. Just discarded. Like, think of the evil that it takes to do those two crimes. Heaven LaShae Ross, same thing. It's just absolutely disgusting. Scene was another woman, not Peggy's so-called crap mom. White man. Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Why not, Chris? Why don't you want cold cases link? I always link it. Yeah. That's the rumor. Hey, Kaleidoscope. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Very true. Oh, yeah. I wouldn't have it any other way, really. Like, um, I don't care, like I don't care. I see other channels that they build their subs like super quick. And I don't care. I don't care about that. I'm going to do what I want. And what I want to do is draw attention to these cases that get no coverage. And if no one wants to listen, I don't give a fucking fork. Like it makes me angry. It makes me sad. But I'm going to keep doing my part and not worry so much about other people's part. And that's why I love my subscribers that are here every time. You guys are awesome. And, you know, it means a lot when you are here, and it helps with morale because, like I said, it takes a lot of fork and work to put these cases together and a ton of research. I worked on this one for probably um at least 70 hours total over the course of this week, and at all the different other times. Like, it's not easy. But when you're called to do something, you just step up to the plate and you do it. And that's just the way it is. Hey, Recliner. How are you? Oh, I'm so sorry. But I think that, um, I'm going to, save the Donald Craig, Rosie Davenport, and, these other cases for a different night. They're just something that I found, as I was researching, and so I have not done enough research, and, there is a lot to read because these are, like, state documents and, court documents and stuff, and so, I'm going to wait and probably do that on, I think what I'm gonna do is try to do, like, a deeper dive on, Heaven, LaShae Ross, Shannon Paulk, which I've covered a lot, but I can always cover it more, and, Teresa Dean and the other ones, and just, like, start slowly giving these, children a voice. I know that Wesley has, Tasha Reese and Wendy Bishop and so many other that you just no one's ever even heard their name. And to me, that is just, that's just not okay to not hear their name. And so when I see other people covering cases, they've got that covered. I can do this, and that's what I'm going to do. But I think that tonight, um, I am going to be finished. It's been an hour and 42 minutes. But I'm just feeling really, I don't know, just sad, disappointed, sad. And I don't know. I am going to go. And I appreciate all of you for being here. And I hope that you have a great night.